All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a close look at a piece from the Borowitz Report, which, if you're not familiar, is a famous political satire column. The piece talks about a resurfaced documentary to make a satirical point about allegations against Donald Trump. So our goal here is to really break down how this piece of satire actually works and the commentary it's making. The whole article is built around this one central question. And right off the bat, it's important to know this little scene documentary, it doesn't actually exist. The author invented it as a device to comment on real-world allegations. So we're going to unpack how he uses this completely fictional idea to build his satirical argument. So, as I said, our source is an article from the Borowitz Report. It's a long-running political satire column by the comedian Andy Borowitz, and it's published in The New Yorker. The most important thing to remember here is that everything in his reports is fictional. It's all written for comedic and critical effect. So, with that in mind, let's look at the arguments he constructs in this satirical piece. Here's the central premise of the entire joke. Borowitz completely invents a fictional BBC documentary from 2018. The satirical setup is that this non-existent film is supposedly full of damning evidence about sexual misconduct allegations against Donald Trump, but, and this is the key part of the joke, that Americans never got to see it. You know, to make satire like this really land, it has to feel just a little bit credible. And Borowitz is a master at this. He doesn't just vaguely mention a film, he invents a very specific documentary as his core evidence. Let's take a look at how he actually describes this fictional program. So, see how he grounds his fiction in a little bit of reality? He places it within a real BBC series, Panorama. And he even gives it this deliberately provocative, almost tabloid-style title. Trump is the president, a sex pest? The timing is another great detail. He says it aired right before a real presidential visit in 2018, all designed to make this fake story feel a little more plausible. And this is where the satire really starts to ramp up. The article claims this fictional documentary featured over 20 accusers. Now, that number isn't random. It's a satirical reflection of the actual number of women who have publicly accused Trump of misconduct in the real world. So he's amplifying reality for that critical comedic effect. Then the article starts to mimic real investigative journalism by focusing on these fictional, on-the-record allegations. By inventing very specific personal accounts, Borowitz is satirizing how the media presents these kinds of stories, and it adds this layer of mock seriousness to his whole report. Here, for example, Borowitz invents a witness, Barbara Pilling, and gives her a quote that sounds disturbingly plausible, doesn't it? This fabricated testimony is really the punchline. It's designed to sound so much like so many other real accounts that it creates this sense of uncomfortable recognition for the reader. The article even constructs this satirical timeline to make it feel like a real exposé. It mixes these vague but real-life elements, like Trump's involvement with pageants in the 90s, with the totally fictional Barbara Pilling story, and, of course, the non-existent 2018 documentary. This structure is a key part of how the satire builds up its mock credibility. Okay, now the satire shifts to what is probably its sharpest point. The article uses a real and pretty infamous quote from Donald Trump himself and pretends it was included in the fictional documentary. It's basically using his own words to corroborate the made-up story. And there's the quote. And this part is actually real. Borowitz uses Trump's own infamous admission about entering pageant dressing rooms. The satirical punch here is that no fictional dialogue is even needed. His real words are used to prove the claims of the fictional documentary, which highlights the author's view of just how self-incriminating they are. And the satire pushes the envelope even further by inventing witness claims about the Miss Teen USA pageant. By specifically mentioning the young age of the contestants, Borowitz uses some pretty dark humor to underscore the most disturbing aspects of the real-world allegations and rumors that have surrounded this topic. So after building this entire fictional case, the article gets to its main satirical question. If this documentary is so damning, why haven't Americans seen it? This is all just a setup for the punchline about media consumption and our political divides. This slide really shows the core of that final joke. The article creates a fictional media bubble, claiming the UK saw the documentary while the US did not. This fabricated disparity is Borowitz's satirical commentary on how information can be siloed and how that completely affects public perception. And the article's concluding punchline is this mock call to action.
Borowitz writes that the FCC can't stop people from sharing clips online. And the joke, of course, is that there are no clips to share because the documentary is fictional. It's one final jab at how information, whether it's real or fake, spreads on the internet.
All of this brings us to a final, bigger question about the nature of satire itself. By creating a detailed, fictional story that feels just plausible enough, the Borowitz Report forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths. It really makes you wonder, in an era of so-called fake news, what role does political satire really play in shaping our understanding of reality?